Thanks for joining us here at 7. I'm Nicole Baker.
And I'm Denise Koch.
Well, a candlelight vigil was held tonight for slain Safe Streets worker Kenyel Benny Wilson.
He is being remembered as someone who wanted to make Baltimore a better place.
WJZ is live tonight. Annie Rose Ramos was at that vigil and has much more on how the Cherry Hill community tonight, Annie Rose, is honoring Wilson.
At Cherry Hill, that means the hood, Jack.
That's right, guys. This memorial just wrapped up. You can see some of the folks behind me. People here talked about the irreplaceable loss of Benny. They described a man who had a big smile, an even bigger heart, who now leaves a big, big hole in this Cherry Hill community.
These candles by hand.
Laying down a candle in memory of the life of Kenyel Wilson, known as Benny.
My husband loved Cherry Hill. Listen, I want y'all to understand that. Born and raised here.
Look what this brother left behind, man. Look what this brother left behind, man. A wife and a little kid. And he might got more kids. I mean, you know, probably been around, probably a brother from the streets and whatnot. Probably got a bunch of kids, but this is the family that he was with, the wife and the husband. We talk a lot about high value men. And yes, I did do a video the other day where I said that these brothers, this stuff don't work. I did do a video. Most of y'all, some of y'all reminded me of that in the comment section. Telling me about this. Like, yeah, you right, you was right. Yeah, this stuff don't work. Yeah, the young boys ain't trying to hear it. Yeah, the young boys ain't trying to hear it. Young boys do not want to hear this. And they're going to accuse you of playing both sides because you got to talk to both sides to mediate the beef. If you a violence interrupter or safe streets or whatever there is in your city. And then just the fact that you're around such violent individuals, you could get hit with a stray. You can get robbed. A whole lot of things can happen to you. But I did say in that video that I do think that these brothers are good brothers. And they mean well. And it breaks my heart to see so many of them dying. One got killed in Baltimore not too long ago. A few months ago, and I did a story on that.
My husband loved Cherry Hill. Listen, I want y'all to understand that. Born and raised here.
Wilson, a Safe Streets worker, was shot Thursday evening and drove himself wounded to Harborview Hospital nearby, where he died a short time later.
We know he was in his vehicle when he got shot. We don't know if he was stopped, if he was talking to someone.
The 44-year-old was a violence interrupter for nearly 9 years in Cherry Hill. Police calling this investigation their top priority.
I mean, at this point, we don't have much to go on. We're hoping somebody saw the vehicle. We're hoping somebody heard the gunshots.
Well, communities like Cherry Hill, all over the country, people don't give information readily for things like this. Sometimes they do, but anything could have happened. He could have got carjacked. He could have got robbed. Anything could have happened. It didn't have to be a targeted hit like, yeah, we're going to kill this violence interrupter. But being a violence interrupter puts you on ground zero.
We're hoping somebody saw the vehicle. We're hoping somebody heard the gunshots.
As this community mourns the loss of one of their own.
Stop playing if you think we're going to forget Benny. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Safe Street Cherry Hill. Thank you, Safe Street Citywide. We see you. We love you.
And Nicole, Benny leaves behind a wife and 11 children.
11 children. So that brother was definitely in the streets at some point. Because if you're a violence interrupter, you gotta be from the streets. You gotta be able to know those connections. You gotta be able to know those areas. You gotta be able to walk through those areas. It's scary walking through those areas, man. Like, real talk, man. Like, it's some places I lived, and I ride through them now. I'm like, how did I live here every day? Like, I would never come around here or go hang out over here. But brother was on ground zero. This happens a lot in Baltimore. And this brother right here, Dante Barksdale, that was a good brother for the community. A good brother. Gunned down in January. And you may recognize the name. Dante Barksdale. He's the nephew of the man who parts of The Wire were loosely based on. The Barksdale storyline in The Wire is loosely based on a real man named Nathaniel Barksdale. Here is Nathaniel Barksdale with Wood Harris, the actor who played Avon Barksdale in The Wire. This is them two talking the real Barksdale versus the TV Barksdale. David Simon, the guy who created The Wire, he wrote for the Baltimore Sun for years, and he covered many of the crimes and the life and times of Nathaniel Barksdale. And when he created The Wire, he created characters loosely based on him, but he gave them the name, the Barksdale. So the Barksdale family is a real Baltimore family from The Wire. And one of his little nephews grew up in the streets, grew up troubled, but became an asset to the community. It was gunned down while he was working as a violence interrupter in January. So now Benny, who was killed last week, he's the second violence interrupter we've lost in Baltimore. The community, the Blackistan community, in the Blackistanian colony, or the Blackistanian Principality of Baltimore, in 6 months.
Just released police charging documents indicate that the suspect shot Barksdale multiple times. Surveillance footage and cell phone data put him at the crime scene. A gun recovered by Anne Arundel County Police during a traffic stop with Powell is confirmed as the murder weapon.
Following a lengthy investigation, our detectives today arrested 28-year-old Garrett Powell for the killing of Mr. Barksdale.
Court records indicate Garrett Powell may have benefited from a revolving door criminal justice system. For example, in October 2020, records show Powell was in jail on a weapons and witness intimidation charge. The city state's attorney's office says prosecutors demanded he be held without bond. However, the judge allowed him to be released on his own recognizance. In February this year, Anne Arundel County Police charged Powell with gun and drug possession. They say he skipped out on home detention.
Isn't it crazy that a violence interrupter, Dante Barksdale, legendary violence interrupter, was killed by a man who should have been under the jail? Because one part of being a violence interrupter, a huge part of that is being woke. Like, being woke, like, there's no conservative violence interrupters, okay? There's no non-woke violence interrupters. Like, it just don't happen. You gotta be like, you know, brothers, I feel you. I know the man holding you down, and look, man, let me help you out so you don't get locked up, and I want to see, it's you can't be like seen as being with the law. You got to be seen as like being something, an intermediary between the law and these guys. You can't be seen as working with the police. You got to be more seen as like an entity unto itself. So, like, these guys, these violence interrupter guys are not going to be pro-police at all. It just does. You just can't go into those environments with that type of aura on you, that type of vibe. So all violence interrupters going to be woke, wokety woke. It's just crazy that this brother was killed by a guy who should have been under the jail.
Investigators believe Barksdale, playing his usual role of peacemaker, may have inadvertently created a beef with the suspect.
In his role as a violence interrupter. And listen, man, I'm not one to besmirch these brothers. When I said that this stuff don't work, it don't. That was nothing against these guys. These are very brave individuals. I wish what they did worked. Even when they don't get killed. I'm not talking about them getting killed. I'm just talking about, like, it just don't work. The model don't work. Only thing work is locking up violent offenders and not letting them out. That's the only thing that works. That's the only thing that works. Harsh sentences. Nothing works. I wish other things worked. You can't take violent criminals and just let them back on the streets with a slap on the wrist. It doesn't work. That doesn't work. And this don't work.
Investigators believe Barksdale, playing his usual role of peacemaker, may have inadvertently created a beef with the suspect.
It does not appear to be a random act.
Surveillance footage from the crime scene, numerous interviews with family members, and the comparison of physical evidence from multiple jurisdictions led to the arrest of Powell. Barksdale, known as Tater, is a victim of the very gun violence he dedicated his life to prevent. Police say Powell fatally shot him outside the Douglas Homes housing project. His death continues to generate an outpouring of grief. He was a personal friend of Mayor Scott.
He believed that everyone had value and a purpose.
What the Safe Streets family feels right now is grateful and relieved and angry and saddened.
Use this tragedy and find the triumph in it. Find the joy in it. What is your soul calling you to do?
What police charging documents do not reveal is a possible motive in the shooting. Police say the investigation continues. Reporting live from downtown, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Well, an anti-violence activist killed on the very streets he was working to protect. Tonight, police admit they don't have much to go on. Thanks for joining us here at 5. I'm Nicole Baker.
And I'm Denise Koch. The Safe Streets employee walked into a local hospital just before 5 yesterday and died shortly after.
So police tonight, they're working from square one. WJZ is live at City Police Headquarters. Paul Gessler on the help that they need from the public tonight. Paul.
Nicole and Denise, Benny Wilson drove himself to the hospital yesterday after he was shot, but by then it was too late. Mayor Scott said he directed Commissioner Harrison to treat Wilson's murder investigation as a top priority. This is video Thursday night of Kenyelle Wilson's Volvo crashed at Harbor Hospital. Benny, as he was known, drove himself here Thursday after he was shot.
We know he was in his vehicle when he got shot. We don't know if he was stopped, if he was talking to someone.
The 44-year-old Safe Streets worker was approaching 9 years as a violence interrupter in Cherry Hill, a location that just last week celebrated a year without a homicide.
Wow. That's amazing. In Baltimore, for this place to have celebrated a year without a homicide, Wow. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I don't think y'all understand how amazing that is. That's almost miraculous. And I know probably you're probably thinking, well, that's because of the safe streets. Nah, that's a miracle. There's something else that explains this. That's miraculous.
Well, another story getting a lot of attention, of course, the growing crime in Baltimore City halfway through the year now, and homicides are on track to once again hit totals in the 300s by the end of the year.
Yeah, we've seen this for far too long now. That number will actually mark the 7th straight year that the city has reached that grim milestone. WJZ live at the Northern Police District tonight. Rachel Carden with how the department is trying to get a grip on this violence. Rachel.
Rick, Nicole, the police department does have a multi-tier plan in place. They are focused on trying to get illegal guns off the street, trying to eliminate domestic violence. But right now, they're really honing in on those most violent offenders to get them off the street.
Crime is off the hook in the city. It's not acceptable.
Emotions running high as city council members talk about crime statistics in Baltimore.
We cannot lose sight of the simple fact that lives are being lost right now. Neighborhoods are hurting right now. We are on track for a staggering 7th straight year of over 300 homicides.
Since the beginning of 2021, there have been 166 homicides, one of them being a victim of a mass shooting on June 16th in West Baltimore, where one person was killed and 5 more were hurt. As of June 26th, 5,686 arrests have been made this year compared to the 7,400 arrests made by this time last year.
Did you hear that? 5,600 arrests compared to 7,400 this time last year. So they're making less arrests, okay, this year. This is part of this new, we can't arrest our way out of this thing. We can't arrest our way out of this gun violence situation. So somehow they think making less arrests is going to make it better. I never got that. That wouldn't be my tact if I was charged with keeping law-abiding citizens safe. Y'all lucky I'm not in charge of keeping law-abiding citizens and children and women and people go to work every day safe. Y'all lucky I ain't in charge of that. Man, I'd be throwing around football numbers. If that was my job, it's not. So y'all lucky. But I'd be throwing around football numbers. They'd be scared. Dudes would be scared. They'd be like, man, I'm moving. All the thugs will move out. All the thugs will move out of my city. They'd go somewhere else. I ain't catching no charge over there. Shit. All the thugs will move out of my city. Oh, nah, I'm not. You going over there to carjack somebody? You crazy.
As of June 26th, 5,686 arrests have been made this year compared to the 7,400 arrests made by this time last year. BPD says while total arrests are down, the number of people arrested for homicide are up. They're not arresting as many people for misdemeanor and nonviolent offenses because they're focusing their efforts and resources on getting the most violent offenders off the streets. While there might be an officer shortage in the department, Baltimore police are doing what they can to beef up patrol.
We use detectives and administrative officers.
Black police chief, black mayor, black city council, black district attorney, black everywhere.
We use detectives and administrative officers to flex the size of the patrol strength so that we can be in more places, answer more calls, have more visibility.
4 years into the creation of the consent decree and 2 years into Commissioner Harrison's crime plan, but still, citizens are telling their representatives it's not enough.
But for us to kind of suggest that what we're doing is working is false.
Told you, it don't work. It's not working.
But for us to kind of suggest that what we're doing is working is false.
And violence isn't the only issue.
While folks are
incredibly concerned about violent crime in our city. There's also some serious issues on property crime as well.
And speaking of property crime and some of those other non-violent crimes, you are encouraged by the police department to file those complaints and record that information online or over the phone, because again, there is a shortage when it comes to officers getting out to some of those non-violent calls. If you need more information on how to do that, we have it linked to this story on our website, WJZ.com. We're live in North Baltimore. I'm Rachel Carden for WJZ.
For joining us, I'm Eddie Kadam. He worked tirelessly to make Baltimore a better place, but ended up losing his life to the same violence he fought so hard to prevent. Safe Streets worker Kenyelle Benny Wilson was shot and killed just a few days ago. Tonight, family and friends paid tribute during a vigil in Cherry Hill. WMAR 2 News' Ray Strickland explains how they also celebrated a man they believe died a hero.
Kenyelle Wilson, or better known as Benny, turned his life around so he could save others.
He just was a very kind, gentle man.
A neighborhood hero who worked for Safe Streets Cherry Hill as a violence interrupter for the past 9 years.
He dedicated 100% to bringing change within the community.
It was just last month when he and his Safe Streets team celebrated going 1 year without a homicide in the neighborhood. But less than 2 weeks later, he was shot and killed.
We did shooting response. Now we're doing 1 for 1 hours. That's the part that really hurts.
Mourning the loss, his family and friends came together for a vigil in Cherry Hill.
You can look around and see the love that he impacted, and it's not just Cherry Hill. This is Baltimore.
Over 100 people attended, many of them holding on to balloons and also each other as they all tried to find peace with a death that will never make sense.
Wow.
So that was a good brother. I promise you, man. Dude's not gonna say that about you if it ain't true, man. Hood dudes not gonna say that about you if it ain't true. I believe that brother was a good brother. I really do. I truly believe that. I'm not saying that he lived a perfect life. But I'm talking about his character. I believe that brother had his character was good.
Wow. That was a good brother, man.
I just miss him, that's all. I just miss him.
This is his wife who briefly spoke during the vigil.
And it's unfortunate that this had to happen to him because he was a good guy. He was an excellent father. I promise you that. They just don't know what they did when they took him away from me.
Wilson never gave up on Cherry Hill or the city of Baltimore. In his honor, his loved ones say they will also do the same.
We have to continue to be there for his wife and his children and continue to fight against this violence in the city. We can't forget Benny. We can't forget what Benny stood for.
In South Baltimore, I'm Ray Strickland, WMAR 2 News.
Rest in peace, Benny. We will all miss you. Police are still working to determine where exactly Wilson was killed. Police also haven't made any arrests in this case yet. So if you have any information about the shooting, you're asked to call them.